Well, let's try this again. Let's try this again. Today is the 22nd of May. It's a Wednesday, uh, 2019. It is journal number 56. And more importantly, it is T plus 50. I am literally halfway home, literally halfway home, if everything goes well and according to plan. Wednesdays are interesting. Wednesdays are supposed to be free days around here, but free days generally aren't terribly free. I start every day, I don't go to clinic um, with a visit from a home care nurse so they can flush my PICC line. It's critically important that the PICC line remains clean and doesn't get plugged up, and it can. Um, Obviously, the reasons can be infection and a number of other things, but the line can get clogged up and can get stuck. And stuck is not a good thing when you have a line that goes from your bicep into the upper chamber of your heart. So they usually get here somewhere between 9. They're supposed to get here somewhere between 9 and 10, sometimes later than other times. That generally means that we get done somewhere around 9:30, but we've been, we've gotten finished as late as 10:15 or 10:30. There's some circumstances when the fates conspired against us. After that, Tuesdays and Wednesdays are supposed to be free days, and it really happens that way, as I just mentioned. But on Wednesdays, we generally do marketing. So we take this loop to Huntington Drive and then swing around and go to Trader Joe's first, and then to Sprouts, and then to Smart and Final if we need to, or anywhere else we need to go. Usually get back to the house in time for lunch. Um, and today I got kind of tired very quickly. So I don't know why I bottomed out. It's an uncomfortable feeling. But we have clinic tomorrow, so I'll have the blood work done, and I'll have a pretty good idea of what's going on. Hopefully my platelets will have stayed up or gone up even more. Then it's a matter of what's going on with my red blood cells, my white blood cells, and we'll, determine what happens after that. I think what's happening is my body's responding to the antibiotics that I got for the C. diff. And the reason I don't extrapolate on what that is because I can't pronounce it anyway. So, and the good news is that if you go look it up and you go C-DIFF, you'll get more explanation than you want. Certainly, if you have experience with that, then excuse me while I go ahead and make an adjustment here. In any case, if you have experience with that, you already know more than you want to know about it. If you know somebody that's had it, you already know more than you want to know about it. It's a particularly unpleasant circumstances if that's all it is. The other thing is I'm hoping to find out what, if any, information they have on there being any trace of graft versus host disease. So I have an idea of what's going on inside my body. But this afternoon, even in the market, towards the end of the market, I got extremely tired. Didn't start feeling better until a little while ago, actually. And maybe it's just a case of knowing that I'm going to be with everybody for a few minutes, and I want to make sure that that I'm okay for that. And quite frankly, I get up for it. So if anybody ever asks you, I think you guys are really worth it. So that talks about where we are right now, where we are today, and where we've been. This afternoon, when I started to feel better, I had a scheduled call with my editor. Sounds more important. Sounds more important than it is, except for the fact that I was exhausted, fatigued, terribly fatigued when the call came in. I don't know how many of you know about the book I just completed, or almost completed. It seems writing a book is an editing. Writing a book's not bad, frankly. Editing the book is torturous. I mean, I don't think there's another word that describes it better than that. It's just an impossibly arduous task of working and reworking and trying to tell a story that has lessons in it. I've been an educator, I think, most of my life. Not for a good part of that time, I didn't even realize I was an educator. But and I think most people fall into that category. I don't think that they realize the lessons that they make available to the people around them. Sometimes by virtue of example only. But I was teaching smog classes, teaching the information education to help automotive repair technicians pass smog classes long before I had the opportunity to speak to the industry and expand that part of my life. And I think the book that I wrote was an extension of the education and training I'd done all those years. And I don't know if I've talked about it before, but today it really came up while we were working on a final edit for the book. I know there are some of you that are listening to this that have heard all of that before, but we really are close to getting it together and getting the book out there. And it's really funny because the book is either a business book that is wrapped in an allegory about a relationship between a contractor and an automotive repair shop owner who just happens to also be a martial artist and talks at great length about martial arts lessons. The book talks at great length about martial arts lessons that are really appropriate in many cases to small business ownership or entrepreneurship in general. Or it's a martial arts book that's wrapped around the story of a small business owner, a contractor whose life is falling apart. It's entitled Misfire, and it's something I'm particularly proud of on a number of different levels and for a number of different reasons. It's a brain dump. It encompasses, a lifetime of experience and observations, practice and training, and it does something that I think a lot of other business books that I've read, and I've read too many, according to my wife, because there's no place to put them anymore. And I like to hold a book. I do have a ton of ebooks, but I do like to hold a paper book in my hand. And I like the smell of it. I like the texture of it. And I'm a margin note writer. So I scribble in all the books that I own. And consequently, library books don't work because those scribbles go back to somebody else. But I really enjoyed writing the book and sharing the lessons that I've learned because they're applicable to everyday life. And I'll give you one short example tonight before I sign off. There's a chapter on flexibility. Generally speaking, you always get to class early if you're studying martial arts, and you try to stretch out before you work out, because if you don't, you're going to tear something. And the older you get, the worse that gets. And in the book, one of the other characters has a conversation with the lead character in the book, contractor, Kurt, and says to him, he says, "Do you know why we do this? And do you know why we stretch?" And he says, "Well, you stretch for flexibility. You stretch so you don't tear anything, so you don't break anything, so you don't wind up, having to stop practicing and going back to something else." And he says, we do that But there's another reason. When you have a greater range of motion, when you're able to go ahead and move more easily and be more flexible, you get to see more options. You get to see options you wouldn't otherwise see because your range of motion is limited. And it's lessons like that that are important to learn. So when your editor turns around and you're trying to see what lessons you can remove from the book so that it's condensed, because it really is my epic novel, so to speak. It's really hard. It's like, it's like turning one of your children away, or somebody telling you that one of your kids is ugly. It doesn't necessarily feel well, but it's necessary. And that's what we're working on. Right, Frederick? That's what we're doing. So maybe that's something to think about tonight, flexibility, the ability to be more mobile, to turn more easily, to see more options, to have a bigger range of motion. And there are other lessons like that. And I guess if you're interested in those, we can talk about them over however long we continue this. I intend to continue it as long as I can. Or you can buy the book and then we can have a discussion about any of it if you like. Okay. In the meantime, stay well, take care, enjoy. I'll let you know how I do at the doctor's and what the blood work has to say tomorrow. Thank you and good night.